The tension in the room was thick, almost suffocating. Reporters sat poised, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. But one voice cut through the noise, sharp and relentless. She wasn't here for answers. She was here for a spectacle. Elon Musk met her gaze, unreadable, unmoved. He had dealt with difficult questions before, but this wasn't questioning, this was bait. She leaned forward, voice laced with challenge. Why are you dodging the truth? A quiet ripple went through the crowd. Eyes widened. Pens scratched against notepads. For a moment, Elon said nothing. Then, with a slight tilt of his head, he spoke. One sentence. Simple, direct, but powerful enough to flip the entire room. The reporter's smirk faded. The cameras zoomed in. And in the next few seconds, everything changed. The room buzzed with quiet tension. Rows of reporters sat with their notepads open, cameras positioned at every angle, waiting for something worth capturing. The air felt charged, not with excitement, but with an unspoken challenge. Elon Musk stepped forward, adjusting the microphone. His movements were steady, unfazed. He had faced the press countless times, but this wasn't just another briefing. Today, the stakes felt different. The audience was a mix of journalists, tech writers eager for Tesla updates, financial analysts looking for market shifts, and political reporters hoping for controversy. They all had their own agendas, their own narratives to build. At the back of the room, camera operators signaled their crews. Every lens was trained on him, every microphone waiting for his first words. Elon glanced at the crowd, expression unreadable. Then, with a small nod, he began. A reporter from Bloomberg raised his hand first. Mr. Musk, what updates can we expect on Tesla's new AI integration? Elon answered without hesitation, detailing improvements in self-driving technology and efficiency. His voice was even, his words measured. Another journalist followed up. Any insights on Twitter's new monetization strategy? He leaned slightly toward the mic. Twitter isn't just a social platform. It's an evolving ecosystem for creators. Monetization should reward content that adds value, not noise. A few nods from the audience. The exchange was smooth, controlled. But it didn't stay that way. A new voice cut through the room. Sharper, more pointed. Mr. Musk, let's talk about the real issue here. The energy shifted. Heads turned. Some reporters adjusted in their seats. She sat near the front, posture firm, her pen tapping against her notepad. A familiar face. Well known, not for her questions, but for how she asked them. Elon met her gaze, expression unreadable. Go ahead. She didn't waste time. Are your policies on X designed to suppress liberal voices? The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded. Elon took a slow breath before responding. I believe in free speech for everyone. That's why I bought Twitter. The words were clear, firm. But she wasn't satisfied. You didn't actually answer the question, she pressed. Are you intentionally silencing one side of the political spectrum? Elon exhaled, tilting his head slightly. If by silencing, you mean enforcing the same rules for everyone, then yes. A murmur passed through the room. A few reporters scribbled notes, others just watched. The temperature was rising, but she wasn't finished. Not even close. She leaned forward, eyes locked on Elon. Her tone sharpened, her voice cutting through the murmurs in the room. But isn't it true that under your leadership, more liberal accounts have been suspended than conservative ones? The tension thickened. A few reporters exchanged glances. Some adjusted their microphones, sensing something was about to shift. Elon took a moment, tilting his head slightly, studying her. Then, with a calm voice, he asked, more liberal accounts? Or more bot accounts? A few quiet chuckles rippled through the room. Some reporters smirked, while others simply watched, waiting for what came next. The reporter wasn't thrown off. She had come prepared. So, you're saying these bans aren't politically motivated? Elon leaned on the podium, unfazed. I'm saying that the same rules apply to everyone. If some people break them more often, That's not bias. That's accountability. She tapped her pen against her notepad, not breaking eye contact. So just to clarify, she said, her voice slower this time, are you refusing to answer because you can't, or because you don't want to? The air in the room shifted. Every camera turned slightly, capturing both of them. Some journalists scribbled furiously. Others sat frozen, waiting. Elon inhaled through his nose, exhaling slowly. Then, his voice steady, he said, let's cut to the chase. You don't want an answer. You want a headline. The smirk on her face deepened. Is that what you think? A pause. A silence that wasn't empty but filled with anticipation. Then she said it. You're afraid of transparency. That's why you're dodging. A few quiet gasps. The shift was immediate. Some reporters straightened in their seats. Others looked toward Elon, gauging his reaction. He didn't flinch, didn't break eye contact. He simply studied her for a long second before responding. Transparency is enforcing policies fairly, not bending them to fit a narrative. Her smirk faltered, just for a second. But she recovered quickly. Then why are so many users accusing you of silencing dissent? Elon's patience was thinning. His jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. Because some people believe free speech only applies when they agree with it. That's not how it works. The energy in the room intensified. Some reporters nodded slightly. Others looked at their screens, already typing up their headlines. But she wasn't done. The room fell into a tense silence. The reporter shifted in her seat, but her expression remained firm. She wasn't here for answers. She was here for a moment. Elon exhaled, his patience thinning. His voice stayed steady, but there was a sharp edge to it now. Transparency isn't about letting people manipulate the platform. It's about making sure the truth is visible, not buried under false narratives. A few murmurs rippled through the room. Some reporters exchanged glances, sensing the weight of his words. The woman leaned in slightly, eyes narrowing. So, you admit you control what people see? Elon tilted his head, unfazed. I control nothing. The users do. We removed bots, spam accounts, and coordinated misinformation campaigns. If certain people lost influence, maybe they should ask themselves why. Her smirk wavered for a second. Just a second. Another journalist, seated a few rows back, cleared his throat. Mr. Musk, about Tesla's next. Before he could finish, she cut in. So, you're dodging the question. Elon didn't react immediately. He simply let the room sit in the tension she created. The atmosphere was shifting. He leaned forward slightly, placing both hands on the podium. I've answered your question multiple times. You just don't like the answer. She crossed her arms. Then why not just say it? Are you removing voices you don't agree with? The air grew heavier. Even the camera crews seemed to hold their breath. Elon remained still, then glanced briefly to the side of the room. A subtle signal. A wordless shift. Security stepped forward. The hush was immediate. Reporters tensed, their eyes darting between Elon and the uniformed officer now approaching the front. The reporter's smirk faded. She stiffened, realizing what was happening. She had two options. Stand her ground, force security to remove her, turn this into a viral moment. Or leave on her own terms, control the narrative herself. Her hand tightened around her pen. She glanced at the cameras, then at Elon. His expression hadn't changed. He wasn't playing her game. Slowly, she pushed back her chair. The legs scraped against the floor, the sound sharp in the silence. She stood. This, she said, adjusting the strap of her bag, is an attack on the free press. Her words were deliberate, loud enough for the microphones. Elon said nothing. He didn't need to. She turned, walking toward the exit. The cameras followed her every step. The door closed behind her. The room stayed silent. And just like that, it was over. The door clicked shut behind her, but the moment was far from over. Inside the room, a heavy silence lingered. Reporters shifted in their seats, glancing at each other, unsure of what to do next. Some stared at their notes, others at their screens. The cameras were still rolling, but the energy had shifted. Someone cleared their throat. "Mr. Musk, do you think this was the right decision?" Elon didn't hesitate. "I think it was necessary." Another voice followed. "Aren't you concerned about how this will be perceived?" He gave a small shrug. "I can't control perception, but I can control what I allow in my own press conferences." The murmurs continued, but Elon had already moved on. He pointed to another reporter in the back, signaling for the next question. But outside of that room, the real storm had already begun. Within minutes, the video started circulating. Clipped, edited, reshaped to fit different narratives. Some accounts posted the full exchange, while others picked out the most dramatic moments, cutting out the context. On Twitter, the hashtags began trending almost instantly. #Musk silences press. #free speech wins. #she was performing. The divide was clear. On one side, outrage. On the other, applause. Elon Musk just removed a journalist for doing her job. If this isn't an attack on press freedom, I don't know what is. Watch the full clip. She wasn't asking questions. She was performing. Musk wants free speech, unless it makes him uncomfortable. This wasn't about silencing the press. This was about shutting down grandstanding. The arguments spread like wildfire. Within hours, news outlets picked up the story. Headlines flooded news sites, each spinning the event in a way that best suited their audience. CNN, Elon Musk removes journalist for asking tough questions. Fox News, Musk shuts down activist posing as a journalist. The New York Times, press freedom under threat? The moment that shook the room. Independent creators, watch the full clip. She wanted a reaction, and she got one. Cable news ran roundtable discussions, with experts debating whether this was a power move or a violation of journalistic integrity. One anchor sighed dramatically. "If we allow this to happen, what's next?" CEOs removing reporters for not liking their questions. A panelist shook his head. "Let's be honest. This wasn't journalism. This was a setup." She pushed for a reaction, and when she got one, she played the victim. Meanwhile, YouTube creators dissected the moment, analyzing every shift in tone, every micro-expression. Some called it a masterclass in handling the media, while others framed it as a dangerous precedent for press freedom. But Elon? He wasn't playing their game. While headlines and think pieces flooded the internet, Elon posted only one thing. A single tweet. Watch the full video. Context matters. No explanations. No justifications. Just the truth. The engagement was instant. Supporters retweeted it, while critics flooded the replies with arguments. Some accused him of spinning the narrative, others praised him for standing his ground. But Elon didn't engage. He didn't need to. The facts were already out there. The dust hadn't settled, but the truth was already buried beneath the noise. Social media was in full swing, twisting the story into a battle of opinions. Some saw it as a victory for integrity, while others called it an attack on free speech. But the real question was never about Elon Musk or the reporter. It was about something much bigger, something that had been happening for years. The line between journalism and activism was no longer clear. Once, the press had been a tool to inform the public. Now, it was a game of performance, where the goal wasn't to uncover the truth but to create a moment. A moment that could be clipped, shared, and turned into engagement. People no longer asked, "What happened?" Instead, they asked, "How should I feel about this?" And that was the real problem. Elon hadn't silenced free speech. He had refused to participate in a staged spectacle. He had recognized the setup, the baiting, the push for a viral reaction. And instead of playing along, he had shut it down. But in a world driven by outrage, the facts didn't matter. The headlines had already been written before the press conference even started. This wasn't about policies. It wasn't about accountability. It was about who controlled the narrative. And that's what people refused to see. The debate would go on. Some would call Elon a defender of free speech. Others would label him as someone who couldn't handle tough questions. But the people who watched the full video, the people who looked past the noise, would see the truth for what it was. A journalist wasn't removed for asking questions. She was removed because she wasn't looking for answers. And that raises a bigger question. Was this about journalism? Or was it about creating a viral moment? You decide. Let us know in the comments. And if you want more content like this, hit that subscribe button.